Hey guys, welcome back to Crafty Mama of Two. Today we are planting corn. So I am laying compost over some cardboard that we put out a couple of years ago. This is where we planted corn then, and it just wound up working out really well, so we were going to do it again. The compost that we're using, I feel like should have been mixed 50-50, but I thought about that after we got done planting. So instead we're going to top it with just regular topsoil, and it will mix in that way. So we're going to plant these hand width apart, which for me means side to side, not fingertip to palm. And then later on, we will cover them with some topsoil and press it down so that they have nice connection with the soil. So here you can see on the very far right, I have a full row, or for the most part a full row, and then I was having Bowen just do half rows because then we could go in from the other side and finish out the rows. For some reason that just made more sense in my head.
Alright, so it has been a couple days since we put the corn out, but we haven't topped it yet because it has rained the last 2 days. So Chris and I are going to work on getting it topped and then press it down so it has good connection with the soil.
So like I said in that clip, we are topping all of the corn rows, and then we are going to be pressing them down so that the corn kernels get plenty of connection with the soil. We are topping it with the topsoil that we took out of one of the beds that we are taking apart, just so that hopefully it doesn't burn the corn kernels. It definitely would have been better if we had mixed it to begin with, but because we didn't, this is what we're doing now. One of the very first times that I planted corn, I planted it behind a wind block, and that's because I didn't realize how it germinated. So basically, or how it pollinated, not germinated. So basically, you want to plant corn in a grid, and you want to plant them somewhat close together. I plant mine about a hand width apart, which means side to side for me, not fingertip to palm. And in doing so, I plant them close enough together that the tassels on top will then pollinate the silks. But unless we get a whole bunch of rain, we don't have issues with the corn molding inside. And so basically with corn, they have the tassels up top and then they have the corn cobs, and they have silk coming out of it. Every single one of those silks is connected to one kernel. And so the more wind you have and the more pollen that is dropped from a tassel onto the silks, the more corn kernels you actually have on the cob. So if you're having bad pollination, it could be that you're not getting enough wind, or it could be that they're not close enough together, because you want the corn close enough together so that when that wind blows, that pollen is going where it needs to. And so we are going to tap this down like I said, and you're going to see me do some really weird balancing acts to get it tapped down. If I had done this again, and hopefully next year we will, I think I would leave a little bit more space between the rows. Not much, but just so that it might make it a little bit easier. It's pretty good, and with corn, you really don't need to get in between all the rows until you're starting to harvest. So hopefully it won't be that big of a deal. We'll see this year when we go to harvest if we have any kind of issues or not. So because it had rained for 2 or 3 days before we laid the topsoil, the compost, which we didn't lay a very thick layer of topsoil because you don't want the kernel to have to fight too much, or any of the seeds that you plant to fight too much to have to get up out of the ground. But because the compost was wet, of course, my shoe was covered in compost. And the reason I think the compost wasn't broken down enough is because any other time we've gotten compost, you can watch me walk a not so straight line. Every time else that we've gotten compost, we haven't been able to smell. It doesn't have the cow crap smell. And this does. Not strong, like horribly strong to the point where it smells like you're actually at the feedlot, but strong enough that I just don't feel like it's quite composted enough. By the time we plant our fall garden, it definitely will be composted enough in the beds and on the ground here that we won't have an issue. But back in that grass area that you see, there's a sign. And in that area, we're actually going to lay cardboard this week and plant out our pumpkins and gourds. And I think when I make the piles for those, I'm going to try to remember to mix it, because pumpkins are sometimes particular about the soil that they're grown in, or that's what I've found. And I don't want the seeds to burn up, basically, with the compost being just straight compost. But that's obviously another video that I will make here this week, and then you'll see it here in a couple of weeks. If you look at my left hand, there's a bandage on my finger. I don't know exactly what I did but in doing yard work 2 days before this, the day that we actually planted the corn, I did something and sprained or strained my pointer finger to the point that I couldn't bend it or straighten it without immense pain. So I wound up taping it together just so that I could get this done. I was able to bend it a little bit to hold on to the shovel and whatnot, but thankfully the boys and Chris helped me out with shoveling at least part of the soil, and then I went down and tapped it all down. I absolutely love the way that this looks in our front lawn. I'm sure a lot of people would have an issue with their front area being taken up, and most people put their gardens in the back, but our backyard is small enough. We have it for the dogs, and that's about it. And so we have a side lot that we own, and then we have a very large front yard. And that's what we use to do our entire garden. Our veggie garden that you guys see in our videos is literally in our front yard, just to the west. Because that's where I have to garden, and it gets plenty of sunlight that way. But I know that in the past, I've had people say that they couldn't imagine having their garden in the front yard, or they've never thought about putting a garden in the front yard because they didn't think it was going to look very nice. I absolutely love the look of it. It's very therapeutic to look out my bedroom window, which is just on the opposite side of, like I can see the cornfield from my bedroom window, and looking out and just watching things grow. And then I didn't show it in this video, but we did go back a couple days after this, and all of the areas between the grow rows, we laid a pretty thick layer of mulch. I do have grass still growing in between the corn itself, and I will probably go in there and just mulch in between if I can, probably with grass clippings, quite honestly, because it's a good use for them when we start doing a deep mow on our grass, because we do get a lot of it each time. But we used some bark mulch, I want to say, just in between the rows as walking paths if I do actually need to walk in between there. That way we don't have to worry about grass growing, and we try not to use any kind of weed killer in our garden areas especially, but on the entire property we try not to. So this will give us hopefully enough ground coverage. We can top it with grass if we need to and keep the grass down. Alright, that's the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy this kind of content, please consider subscribing. We have some ideas coming up that I'm sure you will enjoy. Until next time.